Welcome to this episode of the Sneaker Principle Podcast. My name is Uche Njoku, and I'm only going to further get myself in trouble, but it's worth it. So, what do you mean by that? What do you mean you're getting yourself in trouble? Because at this point in my career, I find myself engaged in many conversations internally and externally with colleagues, with partners, with people who I just come across at different events having to do with education. And recently, I had a conversation about leadership from the perspective of us getting support as leaders. And one of the biggest sources of our support is the work that we engage in with consultants. And I need to define what a consultant is, first of all. And this is strictly from my perspective. Consultant is typically someone who has a breadth of experience in a particular field or a particular topic. So in education, for example, it might be someone who is quite astute at instructional strategies, someone who is has a very extensive background in school culture. It could be even going further into the minutia of things. It could be someone who is a literacy expert or early math expert or someone who has been able to support schools or teachers or leaders in something that they are engaged in a way that's a little bit more detailed. So let's say math, not just saying you're a math teacher, but what grade band are you teaching? What is the environment? What is the pain point in instruction within your space? Are we talking about a turnaround situation where there's very, very low level proficiency because in this particular space, this maybe has been a lack of teachers who have the skills to really move kids forward? Or could it be because different issues, like, for example, having a high immigrant population, children who don't speak English, they're transitioning to a new culture? Or it could just be a space where maybe the school is entering the next phase in math instruction. Maybe they're pushing for the kids to be in algebra 2 and pre-calculus and calculus, and we need strategies on how to better envelop those higher level courses into the present environment. And maybe it's evidenced because of student scores that something is missing. So you want to bring the expert in there, a veteran teacher, a veteran administrator, someone who's done that work deeply in that space and has been able to yield high level results. And that's a great thing. I can tell you this. I've had consultants who literally have said one thing to me, and literally the sky parted. Like, the rays of the sun came down, doves flew above, and I was like, wait a minute, that is what I needed. And I then went on to implement or build something around this concept, this idea, this experience. And they pointed me in the right direction. I did more research, and I was like, wow, I didn't know about that thing. And usually the best advice, the best consultancy has been from people who've done the work. But, however, there's a thing that's happening. It's been happening for a long time now. Excuse me, let me grab my matcha tea. First of all, I must tell you, favorite mug. Many, many years ago, doing a holiday exchange, one of my teachers, we do Secret Santa, was assigned to me, I was assigned to her, and I think I might have given her a journal. And it was a nice journal, it was a nice pen. Then I got this, and I opened it, I was like, okay, this is beautiful. It's a coffee mug, I'm a coffee drinker. Then I was like, wait a minute, I looked at it, I looked at the body of marking, I was like, did you make this? I did not know she was a potter. I think that's the right term. And she made this from scratch. From clay, and did the heat blasting and everything else, and ceramic and the glazing of it. And This is a mug that I'll probably keep forever. So I pray, God, knock on wood, that, that I never break this cup. So I just wanted to share why this cup is important to me. Yeah, connecting back to my profession as a teacher. But now, the getting back to the point of what I was saying. But there's this thing that's happening where a lot of educators, teachers, um, leaders, whether school level, district level, or wherever, have turned off their brains and are only relying on what the expert has to say. And I'm not talking about like new teachers or new administrators or new anything. I'm talking about people who have years of experience, people who've had a proven record of success, whether extreme success or minimal success, but they've had success nonetheless. And they have turned down their brain. Maybe I'm just turned off, or maybe they have fallen into a space of not having the courage to say, this is what I think. This is what I believe might be the problem. So it's interesting. So how do I put this? It's like going to a doctor and the doctor says, "Hey, I think your shoulder pain is being caused by bone spurts." From my experience, we haven't done X-rays yet, but just my analysis, the data I've collected from what you've told me, is telling me this particular thing. And I've treated, excuse me, hundreds, maybe thousands of patients who've exhibited um, the same symptoms. But however, I want to call in Dr. Johnson. I want to call in Dr. Whoever for a second opinion. I want to consult with them to make sure. Or maybe we've done X-rays, and I'm seeing something different in here. I see what I think is the bone spurts, but there's something abnormal what I'm seeing there. I think it might be this. But let me bring in the consultant. And Dr. Johnson comes in and looks at the X-rays and says, "Huh, that's interesting. I've seen this before. It's very rare, but I think it might be this." Let me jump into the the books. Let me look into the research. Huh? Let's try this. Or sometimes it might be, hey, let me call one more person and consult with them because I know the expert in this thing. Because maybe my abilities, even though they might be more than yours, but I think just for certainty of clarity, I'm going to take this one step. Then they come back and say, this is what it is. We're pretty sure this is what it is, and this is the steps we need to take to further confirm, and then here's how we're going to treat it. And I'm saying this because I've gone through this. Someone who's had this my right shoulder completely repaired. I could barely pick it up beyond, beyond lateral to my shoulder and do this. I couldn't do this. And I had a doctor who looked at it, and had another doctor who looked at it and said, okay, because we want to make sure we're not wasting time or causing more damage by doing unnecessary surgery or taking an unnecessary technique. And they figured it out. And now it's funny because this has gone from being my weakest shoulder to being my strongest shoulder, And again, the consultancy, listening, examining, collecting data, coming up with a theory of action, then cycles of support. That's not what we get. I'm telling you, this is not what I'm seeing these days. I'm seeing people walk in and just tell you. Whether they're consultants or they're, internal system support, they're just spewing. and no one is actually doing the work of analyzing and saying, this is how we're going to attack this pain point, this problem of practice, this thing that we're seeing that's unique to this environment that needs to be addressed. But I can't even blame the consultants. I can't blame the outside resources. I have to blame you, the leader, because you are outsourcing your voice. The things that you know, you're not in that seat by accident. Most leaders, most teachers who are still in the classroom, still doing that great work, still moving kids forward, you're not there by accident. You have a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of abilities. And yes, there are some situations where maybe you were not ready. Maybe you were not fully equipped. So maybe you've been running, you've been running the show, running your classrooms, running your schools, hoping that nobody finds out that you're a fraud. It happens. There are people out there who are in the seat who should not be in the seat. There are people in the classroom who should not be in the classroom. And things that might be so bad in their school environment that guess what happens? They're able to get away with it for a long time. And that's a different situation. But I'm talking about those of you who have 10, 15, 20 years working in teams, working for good leaders, seeing things, being able to move that child. Then you find yourself in a situation where, man, for whatever reason that these things are happening, the results are not yielding what we're looking for, what we think they should be. And a lot of times it has to do with the fact that you're not willing to speak up. You allow people to come in and tell you what to do, and you say, okay, we're just implementing these things. But there's no real dialogue. I'll even go as far as saying often we are the reason for lazy consulting. I show up into your space for the first time. I've done no analysis. I've done no walkthroughs. I've not sat with kids. I've not sat with parents. I've not sat with teachers. I've not listened to figure out what are the symptoms? What is the diagnosis? What are the next steps? What is the treatment? We just go from here's aspirin, here's a program. Let's just throw this program into play. And then we wonder, wait a minute, why is it not working? And those of us who are responsible, the consultants are not responsible, the outside support are not responsible. Principals, assistant principals, teachers, we're the ones who are responsible. Because 99% of the time, the kid does not know the stranger who's sitting in the back of the classroom taking notes. Most of the time, those people don't interact with the kids. They're just standing there taking notes. Sadly enough, a lot of times, they don't interact with the teachers. They show up, sit down, they take notes, they walk into a team meeting and they kind of like vomit, they vomit their feedback and they leave. And they're charging thousands of dollars a day in consulting fees. And I'm not hating. Trust me. Listen, bro, make your money. Sis, make your money. But what are the outcomes? What are the true outcomes? And don't tell me 1 or 2% growth is growth because, okay. And so in some cases, just not doing anything and waiting would get you 2 or 3% growth. Us leaders, we're looking for seismic shifts. We're looking for for those things that need to be done to really move the whole entire school, all kids. Because again, this is not just about numbers, it's about lives. But if you're sitting there as a leader and you're not saying anything, what are we doing? I've sat in rooms with principals and I did the math in my head. This estimate, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Yes, 30 years, 15 years, 15 years. 16 years, elementary school, middle school, high school. Some people who've worked across all grade bands in different environments, high level, low level. And I'm asking myself, you trying to tell me the answer is not in the room? That someone has to come out and say, this is what's worked in Willacoochee, Georgia. So it has to work. So it has to work in this environment. Complete nonsense. And maybe my bravado and my boldness right now is coming from the fact that I just finished a decision making course in my graduate program, and I also took that course along with social research. And it's funny because the methodology in figuring out the problem and the steps to take, it's not that complicated. Really saying, okay, listen, this is what this data is saying. This is what we've been able to extract, and then using that as the jumping point for what happens next, not just for the consultant, but also for the client, the school leader, the teachers, the students, the parents, the community. But again, it doesn't happen if we as leaders are not the ones dictating that. If we're not questioning, if we're not saying, show me, if we're not saying, I don't understand, and we can't be afraid to say, I don't understand what you're telling me right now, show me. A lot of times, us educators, we forget in our field as educators, we are scholar practitioners because we're required to consistently be learning, be applying research in what's happening out there, which requires that we're always asking the question, why? Why is this happening? Why would that work? Why was this not working? Why should I listen to you? The why. We get so stuck on the how. How can I raise my scores? How can I get my teachers to stop calling the union on me? How can I? How can I? How can I? Look at how that sounds. When you're coming from how, then what happens is you sound like you're begging for somebody to come in there and do the work for you. You should be asking the question, why? There's places for hows. There should be why. So we have an understanding. Then the next thing we should be is what do we do next? Coupled with why. What should we do next? Okay, but why are we doing this? Okay, because if everybody has a clear understanding collectively, or maybe sometimes individually, then moving forward is much easier. Leadership starts when you stop waiting for perfect language and you start speaking your truth. We have to become brave in really questioning things, really tapping into our experience in the field. Over 20 years, K through 12, I've, I've, I've sat in a three-piece suit in a pre-K classroom with a palm print red paint on my back and walked around the rest of the day in school, not realizing I had a little kid palm print on my back of my suit jacket from visiting a pre-K classroom while they were finger painting to sitting in a high-level physics class of 12th graders who are ready to who are preparing for the Advanced Placement Physics course. I've been in classes where students literally could not read, and I've been in classes where kids were writing like prose and stories and that literally took me aback, like masterful writing. I've had teachers who taught me because they were just brilliant and had years of experience, and no program could make them better. If anything, they made the program better. I've also sat with teachers who were struggling, and I was told that they needed to be fired. And 2 or 3 years later, that teacher is one of the best teachers on that team. And that was a consultancy. Yeah, you need to get rid of this teacher. And I said, why? They couldn't tell me. Oh, just look at her results. But why are her results the way they are? That's what I was asking. And they couldn't tell me. But they weren't willing to do the work, so I did the work. I researched her history. I looked at her skill sets and said, you know what? You're placed in the wrong environment. Let me put you in this classroom. Let me allow you to do this here. And she blossomed. Many of us leaders have had the experience many, many times. But we live in a world now where we allow others to dictate our abilities. We allow others to tell us, how to do the work, versus being truly consultants, thought partners, helping us collectively figure out the problem or practice, that pain point that we know is there, that we just need a second pair of eyes. The problem is that these days we shut our eyes and let somebody see for us. We close our mouths and let somebody speak for us. And we close our ears to our hearts and to our minds. So that internal voice who's telling you, that doesn't feel right. We ignore it. And we spend thousands of dollars to be in the same spot we were. Year and year and year and after year. I hope that this is touching someone out there. Call to action. Speak up. Open your mouth. Say something. Ask why. Ask why. You have the right to ask why. Show me. Explain this to me. Help me understand. Because as a leader, I have to take this information and make it make sense to my people, to my team, and most of all to myself, because I'm the one who's being held accountable by my students, by my teachers, by my community. All right, y'all. Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principal. Have an amazing day, and talk to y'all soon. Be well.